Hi CC students. I wanted to put together a video here on Friday night to talk about a topic that is a little bit different than the other videos, and it'll be different than the videos that we've done in the past and the ones that we're doing in the future. But first I want to say thank you to everyone who has taken the time to watch our videos. I hope they're helpful. The reason we put these together was to help our students on our campus and also other students on other campuses understand this really hard concept, and I appreciate your comments. One comment that we saw that I wanted to talk about is that there's a concern, and it always happens, it's happened every year within our community, is how do we avoid coaching students in mock trial? The mock trial curriculum, the packet, is very clear about we shouldn't have coaching involved in this process. But we as leaders in the classroom, and you as tutors and parents at home, we are responsible for the education of our students, and we need to be involved in this process. We can't give a mock trial packet to students and expect that the end result in 4 months would be anything that would resemble a real trial without helping them through the process. And that was really the point of the first 5 videos, was to understand the process. And in next videos that I'm going to do, we're going to talk about some concepts that I think will be important, but we're going to stay in line with the mock trial packet when we talk about things like intent, when we talk about what an indictment is. That's important concepts that are necessary. So that is not coaching, that is leading the discussion, and that's providing information. So our role really in this process as the adults, not the students now, but our role as the adults in this process is really to and this is just things that I came up with. Provide instruction. We're to lead the discussion, and we're to encourage the students and promote the love of learning, but also the love of the law. And that's why I've been involved with mock trial, because I love to see the students become as passionate about the law as I am. And the purpose of these videos is just to provide you with the information that you need so that you can move forward for the students and be able to process all of these really difficult concepts. And I'm trying to break them down in an easy way. You know, trying a jury trial, I'm fortunate as a prosecutor to get to try jury trials. Trying jury trials, you're teaching citizens about the law. And that's exactly what we're doing through these videos, but it's exactly what you're going to do in a mock trial. You're going to teach everyone there as students about the law. Your parents, your grandparents, your tutors, the other side, the jurors who are sitting there watching that. You're going to become experts in this area of the law and teach it to them. And so that's really our role for the students, but it's also, I feel like, our role as leaders in the community, but also leaders in the classroom to help the students. And if we do this the right way, which I think we are, it's a beautiful thing. So let's talk specifically about some of the concerns people have about coaching. And what is coaching? Because the CC curriculum in the packet is specific about we should not have coaching, and we should not have outside help. This should be a student-led. And so how do we do this to also honor the integrity of the program, also to teach the students the process, but also to make this enjoyable? And there's a way to do it, and we've been successful at it, and we're going to do it together, all of us, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to say, what is coaching? Well, we know what coaching is from athletics standpoint, but let's talk about it in this context with the mock trial. Let's give some examples of coaching that could cause problems in a mock trial. First one, if you're telling the students specifically what theory of the case to use, or what theme to use, that's coaching. Now, you'll see in the mock trial packet, they talk about theories of the case, some examples of potential theories that you could use. I encourage you to go further than that and not use theirs, but how you develop a theory or theme, I'm going to do a video about that because it's a hard concept. I told you that a few videos ago. So telling them specifically what theory or theme to use, that's coaching. But talking about what a theory or a theme is in a legal concept is not coaching. And you can see the distinction between that. Next, how to use evidence to prove your case. Remember, we talked about that in order for the party with the burden of proof to prove their case, they use evidence, right? They use testimony of the witnesses, and they use documents or physical evidence, right? Well, if you're teaching your students how to use that evidence, and I'm not talking about following the mock trial guide where it talks about how to enter in a piece of evidence. We're going to go through that as well. You don't expect the students to understand how to put a piece of evidence into a court proceeding. But if you're specifically talking about, hey, use this exhibit in order to prove this theory, you've gone too far. Now you're coaching. What you should be working with the students is questions like, how does this exhibit help prove a theory, the theory that you created, right? And I think it's appropriate to remind the students of what their roles are as the prosecution and defense. And also, I think it's important to remind the students that the testimony of the witnesses and the exhibits all should serve a certain purpose, right? They should all, if you're for the prosecution, they should all serve the purpose of meeting the elements of the crime. If you're on the defense side, those exhibits and that testimony should serve a purpose, right? And that should be to discredit or to present an alternative explanation for the crime. We've gone over all that, and we'll continue to go over that. So how specifically to use it, though, to help the students come up with a theme or theory, we should never do that. That takes away this experience. That takes away us encouraging or promoting and leading to discussion. We're stealing that from the students, and we would never do that. So we're not going to do that. What to say in your opening statement. Now, it's appropriate to have the students review their opening statements with you. You should be doing that. That's your role as parents and tutors. But what specifically to say, or writing their opening statement, we would never do. I've never done that, nor should we ever do that. One thing I will do, though, is I will provide an example of a bad opening statement and an example of a good opening statement. And these examples are not from this mock trial, but they are used to illustrate the difference between just basically checking off the box. Hello, my name is Derek Klepper. It's Friday night, and I need to put this video out here because we don't want to coach people. Or, we got some messages on Facebook tonight, and some people were asking questions about coaching and whether these videos are coaching, and I want to talk to you about that tonight. You see, so giving them examples of different ways to present it is perfectly appropriate, and we should be doing that. So that's the other thing that I want to talk about. And also that goes to the closing arguments as well. We'll help them formulate their direct and cross-examination questions. We help them do that because they need to know the difference between direct and cross-examination question. We lay that out in an instruction for them. However, when it comes to actually formulating their questions, the students are going to do that. I don't want to do that, right? You don't want to do that. That's the work that we don't want to do. We want to watch them do that. So that's the difference between, I think, leading the discussion and coaching. So I've come up with some tips, I think, that have been helpful for me, and you can feel free to take them or disregard them. But these are tips for parents and tutors that I think that are helpful in this process. And this is probably a good time to talk about this in the mock trial. Number one, we ask questions. And we ask a lot of questions of our students and use the common topic questions that my children and my wife know very well, and they use these all the time. So my wife is a tutor. She talks about these common topic questions. So one example, I think, this week is if you're where we are in the mock trial, the students were required to rewrite 2 witness statements. And they were supposed to write them in their own words, and they were also supposed to put the statements on the timeline. So when we get into Community Day on Tuesday, one thing that we're going to do is we're going to use common topic questions to talk about the statements. We're going to have the students review their statements, but we're also going to talk about how these statements, specifically how they're the same and how they're different. So how these 2 witness statements are the same. We're also going to talk about the evidence that comes out of these witness statements, perhaps, and how it helps one side and how it may help another side. And specifically, if we have time, one thing I want to talk about is how a specific piece of evidence can actually help one side and then also help another side. And when I'm saying sides of the case, I mean the prosecution and the defense. these are really early concepts that we'll be talking about that, and we're really early in the process, but I don't think it's too early to start talking about that and thinking about this. Now, with that said, your students are probably really excited about this case, and you students are. And you're really probably starting to think about theories and themes of your case. And one thing that what I think is helpful is that when students come to parents, or they come to the tutors, or they come to people that come to class like me, and they start asking questions that are going towards a theory or a theme this early in the mock trial process, one thing I encourage them to do is write them down. So you should have a notebook somewhere, or a list of questions that you're going to come back to later. We're not going to disregard those questions, but we're not in a point where we're going to answer them now, and we're not going to hijack our discussion in a very limited time to go down a rabbit hole about a theory or a theme that we may not even use in the trial. The students may not use in their trial. But it's good to write those down to come back to later. It's probably not too early to start doing the Annie charts when you come up on these things. So what I encourage the students to do is this. They bring something to you. Specifically, I had a student come to me the other day and ask me specifically about the diagram of the body done by the medical examiner, and they had a specific question about that. And I told them to write the question down. I think what I probably should have done is said, well, start asking these questions. Instead of just writing your question down, start asking the questions to the students, saying, well, that's an interesting point. How does that point that you just brought up about that exhibit, how does that help the prosecution's case? And it's a good time to remind them what the role of the prosecution is, right? To prove each and every element of the charge to try and convict somebody of murder. And I think it would be also then say, well, is there any way that it helps the defense's case? And as parents and tutors, you can start to have these discussions with the students to ask these questions. That's what we're doing. We're facilitating the questions, the learning process. The students are the ones that are arriving at the answers. And then when they get into the community and they're with their classmates, that's when they can begin to say, hey, this is what I found. This is a question I have. And they begin to compare the documents and they bring it all together. So we're not going to coach, and I'm going to really try hard, because I've done this now a couple of years. I don't want to bring up facts from previous mock trials and things that we already know. And if you're a tutor and you've done this a couple of years, you know this case really well. You don't want to steal it from the students. You don't want to steal the excitement of them finding something within a witness's statement that they're going to use in their trial. We don't rob the students of that opportunity. So I hope that answered your questions. If you want to discuss it further and you have comments, please do. Sorry this was such a long video. I know it's Friday night. Enjoy your weekend, and I'm going to work on some other videos for you this weekend. Have a great weekend. Thanks.